All right, so now let's talk about FiberMesh hair, or FiberMesh feathers. I'm going to step down at my subdivisions, and I'm going to delete that highest subdivision. Let's bring everything else back. Go to geometry, delete higher. And now, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm probably going to knock this back a little bit. It's a little too strong for what I want to do right now. So I'm going to step down on my subdivisions and make sure my symmetry is on. And I'm just going to smooth this down so I have a nice clean surface. Now I do want to go through and sculpt out some sculptural feathers, even if I'm doing poly feathers on top of it. The reason being is that you're going to end up trying to place so many feathers in an area that inevitably some of the surface of the mesh is going to show through. And when it does, you don't want blank mesh, or you don't want nothing underneath there. So I'll keep some details. So like when I step up right now, I'm going to keep that in there. All right, so what I'm really looking at doing is creating some feathers that break the silhouette. So let's step back down. There we go. And let's work on this area. So here's, how many of you guys, have you guys all used FiberMesh? Do you need just a general rundown on FiberMesh? Did I give you one already? You haven't. Okay. So I'll start with, okay, awesome. I'll start with some fundamentals then in FiberMesh. So FiberMesh, what is FiberMesh? FiberMesh is ZBrush's solution for hair. That's one way of looking at it. They are polygonal shapes that have special attributes assigned to them, the individual fibers, and they're grown from the surface of each point. So they're anchored to points. So let's go ahead and just turn on the preview for FiberMesh. So I've opened up the FiberMesh subpalette. I'm going to turn on preview, and this is what you get. All right, you get hair everywhere, long strands. But you can tune this in various ways. You can tune the amount of fibers that you have on your surface. You can apply a variation to the density of those fibers. More importantly is that you can apply fibers by mask. So right now it's everywhere, but let's just apply a mask to an area here. My fibers are going to disappear. There we go. Let's turn on preview. And let's hide the mask. Control H. There we go. So we don't see the mask. So now, and let me change my background document so you could see it, or the background of my document so you could see it a little bit better. Sorry, document. And let's go into range. And let's see, maybe let's go the other way. I always go to draw. I don't know why. Let's click on back. There we go. So now you can see the fibers a little bit better. All right, so there's our fibers in their base state, the default state. We have them being applied by mask. I can use this apply by mask to control how much it adheres to the edge of the mask. The more higher I have that, the closer it's going to adhere to the edge. It's not going to go beyond the edge of the mask. If I bring this down, it's going to bleed out and away from the mask more. I'm going to skip over by area. So I just want to skim over the important stuff here. We have an embed, which controls how much the fibers are embedded into the surface, because part of the fiber is sticking into the well, it's poking in through the mesh and then coming out on the interior. So that's what the embed function does. Then we have length, a length variation. We have coverage, which is width. So let's get in close here and take a look at an individual fiber. It's a planar piece of geometry that by default has 3 segments. If I increase my coverage, I increase the width of that fiber. Now, this planar piece of geometry is a placeholder. When we render, depending on your settings, it'll render out a volumetric piece of geometry. Now, for our purposes, we don't really need that. We don't need that volumetric piece of geometry. What we need is the planes, and we need the curves. That's the important stuff. So we have coverage. We have a coverage variation. We can also scale just the root to make that thicker and scale down the tips to make that more pointy. So I think you could see where I'm going with this for the feathers, right? We have to be careful though, because this can quickly increase our poly count. So I'm going to bring down my max fibers. So I'm just looking for something that's going to break the silhouette. I'm not going to scale my root out, at least not like that. I will embed this a little bit. And I think that's a little too far. Let's go back. There we go. That's a little better. All right. Beyond that, let's continue down. So there's a slimming feature which slims out the fibers. Yeah, I'm going to turn off my length variations. I'm going to take this down to 0. There we go. And my density variations too. Let's take that down to 0. All right, so from slim, we come down to revolve. Revolve is how the fibers are laying across the surface, if they're revolving around an area in a surface. That applies a revolve or a twist in here. Underneath that, we actually have a twist in the fiber itself, not in its placement. So this is revolution in the placement. This is revolution in the plane itself. And then we have variation sliders next to that. I'm just going to take that down, take that down. I want no twist. There we go. All right, from here, I'm going to go over to the gravity slider. So our fibers are laying across the neck right now according to the direction of gravity. The direction of gravity for fibers is always the bottom of the screen. So if I were to come over here and make an adjustment, so let's increase the gravity, all those fibers are now going to fall towards the bottom of the document. But that's not what I want. I want them to flow down the direction of the neck. So I'm going to get the neck facing the right way. Let's take the perspective off. Ah, that's lovely. All right, let's try that again. I'll use the other technique to do that, or I'll just look at the front, rotate it forward, and then rotate it to the side. There we go. All right, let's increase the gravity. I want these to lay fairly close to the neck. There we go. Now, if I wanted to add color to it, I can add color here. So let's see. Say the base is a brownish color. Oh, I'm sorry. The base is a brownish color. Let's go with a light, maybe, let's go light gold. And the tip, let's have it ticked dark. And then we have how strong these colors are being applied. So I'm going to turn up my base colorize. Now more of my base color is showing. Base color variation, I'm going to bring that up so I get variation between the feathers. Tip color variation, I'll do the same thing. So I get variation in the tip color. So once I have some fibers that I'm happy with, and I did skip over a couple of things. Actually, I just didn't get down to them yet. You can also, actually, let me back up. All right. So here you can apply a texture to each fiber. So if say you had a feather texture that you wanted to use, so let me pull up browser window, and let's go feather texture. So let's say this. I'm okay with that. All right. We can come over here, import. I'll probably have to rotate it. And it looks like it's not wanting to import, so maybe it's not done saving out. Let's go texture import here. There we go. Let's try it again. All right, it's saved out now. Let's try again. There we go. So it's going to ask me if we want to resize it. I'm going to say yes. And it's facing the wrong direction. So how do I fix that? Well, I'm going to go ahead and import it actually straight into this palette instead, because here I can manipulate it. So let's go here, click here, and then let's go ahead and rotate it out. And I think let's try that direction. So now I'll go over here and I'll select that texture. There we go. All right, so now I already have a texture across all of these. They're automatically UV'd. So I don't have to mess with the UVs on them at all. And then I would just play with the shape of the feather itself. So once I have that, I have two other attributes that I can play with. I have profile and segments. Profile will give thickness to these planes, which we don't want. Segments will increase the amount of segments along the plane, which we probably don't want either. Because right now, I'm going to see how many polys we have so far. And by clicking accept, it should be, let's see, we have 10,000 extra polys just for these feathers. So I've already way blown my budget on this with all of these. Right? That's why I was saying I want to use these scarcely. But if I look around this, I do have some cleanup to do. There's a couple fibers up there that I don't want, but overall it's still way too, it's way too thick. I think maybe I can remove some of these that are going into the interior. It looks like I have quite a few of those that I can get rid of. And I think those are from the inside of the mouth. I masked out the inside of the mouth accidentally. Nope, they're consistently going all the way down. So maybe I have about 5,000 extra polys in these fibers once I get rid of all those.